Penicillin was not discovered by accident. That is the myth. The reality is more interesting. Alexander Fleming was one of the most meticulous bacteriologists working in London in the 1920s. He had spent years studying how bacteria could be killed, and he was genuinely looking for something that could do it safely in human tissue. So when he returned from a 2-week vacation in September 1928 and found that one of his petri dishes had been contaminated by mold, he did not just notice the contamination. He noticed the pattern around it. There was a clear halo of dead Staphylococcus bacteria surrounding the mold colony. He recognized immediately that this was not nothing. The mold was Penicillium notatum, and Fleming spent the following months culturing it and documenting what it produced. He published his findings in 1929 in the British Journal of Experimental Pathology. He correctly identified that the mold secreted something antibacterial, he named it penicillin, and he noted it appeared to be non-toxic to human tissue. This is where the myth says the story ends triumphantly. It does not. Nobody cared. Fleming's paper landed in the scientific community with almost no impact. He struggled to isolate the active compound in a stable, purified form. His chemistry skills were not up to the task, the technology of the time made purification genuinely difficult, and when he presented his work to colleagues, the response was largely indifferent. He essentially shelved the project by the mid-1930s. Fleming himself, in a 1945 Nobel lecture, acknowledged that he had not been able to take it further. The people who actually turned penicillin into medicine were Howard Florey and Ernst Boris Chain at Oxford, working more than a decade after Fleming's original paper. Beginning in 1939, they returned to Fleming's published findings, assembled a team, solved the purification problem through a laborious series of chemical and biological techniques, and in 1941 conducted the first clinical tests on a human patient. That patient, a police officer named Albert Alexander who had a severe, spreading infection, showed dramatic improvement before the supply of penicillin ran out. He died. But the principle was proven. Florey and Chain then faced the challenge that Britain, deep in the Second World War, could not scale up production. They flew to the United States in 1941, and the American pharmaceutical industry took it from there. By D-Day in June 1944, Allied forces had enough penicillin to treat the wounded at Normandy. It saved an enormous number of lives. Fleming, Florey, and Chain shared the Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine in 1951. And here is the genuinely strange part of all this: Fleming became by far the most famous of the three. He toured the world as the discoverer of penicillin, was celebrated as a hero, and the narrative of his accidental brilliant discovery became one of the most repeated science stories of the 20th century. Florey, who had actually made the thing work, was considerably more modest about it and gave far fewer interviews. History chose the better origin story over the more accurate one. Fleming observed something real and important. But the distance between that observation and a working medicine was 12 years, a world war, and 2 other scientists the world largely forgot.